Hi, I'm Leo, this is Course Jenkins, and today we're going to finally build something in Kubernetes. We spent quite a bit of time configuring our Jenkins instance and managed to run a few jobs. We even have a pipeline that builds Docker images successfully. Now let's move it to Kubernetes. Now, the most eagle-eyed of you may have noticed that we actually have a pod template for like a Docker building image for Kubernetes, but it's not going to work. And here's why. We have configured both clouds for Docker and Kubernetes. In Docker, you might remember, we have gone through a lot of a hassle to expose Docker's socket, but we didn't do that for Kubernetes. So let's do that now. We do not have any other containers except for our all-in-one. Let's go with this one. Let's add a container, a new container template, and we will need a dint. It's Docker in Docker container. That is a special container that's only purpose is to expose Docker socket from the host it's running on. We will use the official Docker image from Docker Hub to run Docker in Docker. Yeah, that's too many Dockers, I know, but bear with me. I'll use Docker 18 because that's the version I have everywhere. And of course, we need to run it in privileged mode. Otherwise, it would not be allowed to map Docker socket to itself. So now that we have added it, of course, one more thing. We need to tell the other containers where to look for it. So we will add an environment variable to our AIO container that the Docker host is this localhost 2375. Yeah, that should be enough. Now let's go and build our, let's say, Terraform image. Yeah, it's going to take a while to create. Yeah, I'm using Lens for Kubernetes to check whether or not the thing's actually running. And all right, our pod is running. Will it work the first try? Yeah, you don't want to curse it like this. Yeah, after a long git clone, we got the build error, cannot connect to the Docker daemon. Turns out there is two things wrong with it. First, there's no home directory here, so let's just do arbitrary something in the root. Yeah, Jenkins. And what most important is command to run and arguments must be empty, otherwise it doesn't run Docker at all. So this socket is there, but it doesn't expose it. You may have noticed I have never exposed any ports from our dint container, so how the hell can we access it from another container? Well, to understand how, let's see how the pod actually works with our totally professionally drawn infographics. A pod is the smallest entity in Kubernetes. It may contain several containers. In our case, we have our JNLP. It is the thing that communicates with Jenkins. We have our all-in-one, the main container that we actually run pipelines in, and the dint container that we've just set up. It gives us Docker on port 2375. It's just how it is from out of the box. And of course, if you run Docker from inside this container, it will have no problem to connecting it at itself, like localhost 2375. Yeah, no problem there. But what if we were to run this from our main container that we actually wanted to run from? You may think that it will answer to itself on a localhost, but no, not really. It's not how Kubernetes works. Instead, we call our pod as a local host. So now we get a reply from a container that actually shares the port 2375. So the entire pod is the same local host. So if we were to try to run another service on port 2375 in another container, no, it wouldn't let you. It will just say the socket is occupied or something like that. So now if I run the same container, yay, we have Docker process running. Yeah, it's starting to build an image. It's going to take a while. Yeah. And we inevitably are going to stumble upon another issue. We cannot log into Docker IO, like Docker Hub. Of course, we didn't specify any credentials for our container. So we do have those credentials handily available in our Jenkins credentials store. We did that for Docker. So we use with credentials class in Jenkins pipeline, which will just take those credentials and put them in variables named user and pass. And with that, that should be everything we need. Yeah, let's check it's already run. Let's check if it's enough. The funny thing about this with credentials thing is it masks all the occurrences of both username and password. So here, my repository name and my username are the same. So every time it encounters my name, it will mask it. That's just a thing to consider if you want pretty logs. But nevertheless, we have our thing successfully run and pushed, and well, yeah, that's it. We're done. That's exactly how I build my applications, or not even my applications, any applications, and run them in Kubernetes in the cloud in my day job. So yeah, that's basically all I do for a living. Now, what to do with all this? How the hell do I know? I'm not your mother, do whatever you want. Now you essentially have all the information you need to run Jenkins at your job and yeah, build things. Next time we're going to dive a bit deeper in pipelines, in scripted pipelines in GroovyScript. So yeah, that's the last part I can think of that we haven't talked about yet. As always, there is a handy like button somewhere around here. The subscribe button is also out there. And yeah, if you feel like doing some of those, just click them. It does help. Bye!